Yeah, I want to discuss the blatant negativity of the Georgia Guidestones. You know, in this new day and age, we're going to be having a problem with if you say anything on the internet that's negative, they can probably say that's you're spreading fear or whatever the hell it is. But let me talk about one of the biggest things that have been around in the United States and discussed actually amongst some of the conspiracy buffs, maybe you want to call them, or fearmongers, if you know, as some of the major media might call them, which is the Georgia Guidestones. But when you look at these rules, you can actually see that it is actually, for the most part, they are extremely myopic, negative, narrow-minded, myopic, same thing, rules. That's really what's going on. And, you know, I really like to call attention to the fact that not only is it something that we don't like, but also something that it's extremely negative. You know, if we left it up to the supposed elite to come up with all the inventions from the beginning of, say, the last 2,000 years, maybe not since the beginning of mankind, because we don't really know when mankind began. It could have evolved and been destroyed, and evolved and been destroyed many times in the billions of years that Earth has been around. But we know what's been happening at least in the last few thousand years. But you look at all the inventions that have been developed and all the things that we progressed. Has it been done by the elite? No. They profited by it, but have they actually invented something? No, actually it's been, I would say it's a cooperation or teamwork or a labyrinth where people find and discover what works best. So, in other words, when you got myopic know-it-alls with negative attitudes running roughshod over the people, they limit progress. It's the definition of negativity to the max. So, this is one thing I should be urging, that the Georgia Guidestones, you know, if the CIA is an organization to protect the United States of America and its way of life, and its citizens, and its Constitution, and its Bill of Rights, they should get right down to the bottom of who erected the Georgia Guidestones, because it is undermining the integrity of the true American way, the true United States, and we the people. So I want to actually state like just how negative this Georgia Guidestones is. I don't want to be negative. I'm just telling you, the ones that are erected in the Georgia Guidestones, they are extremely negative, myopic, and narrow-minded. They cannot see beyond the tofu on their plate. That's all they know. You know? A little Grey Poupon in the Grey Poupon car, you know? Anyway, number one, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Who's to say that humanity cannot be already at 8 billion? You say the world is overpopulated? Is all the world's arable land, farmable land being utilized? Are all the best farming methods being utilized? I put out on a couple videos already about not something I developed, but actually a team of scientists developed in a pharmaceutical company, believe it or not. And the invention, or basically the discovery, it wasn't an invention, was quashed because they want to push genetically modified foods. But the invention, or whatever you want to call it, or method, maybe that's what would be a better word, was to apply fields of electricity, electrostatic electricity, not through seeds, but around seeds and fish eggs. It wakes up the primeval code, the DNA, the hidden DNA, the strongest DNA expression in seeds and fish eggs, and it makes like wheat grow in 6 weeks instead of several months, much hardier wheat, much bigger salmon and trout. In other words, we got all kinds of capability, but they're telling us they got a myopic, negative attitude. They want to squash the population. Now, I just saw something with Bill Gates talking about vaccines, and I'm saying to myself, that's cute. You know, one thing I know that, well, from my research, there's been times where I was highly suspicious that there's been things laced in vaccines on purpose or either through a negligence. But another stated goal is to vaccinate the population, to sterilize them, to reduce the population, which you could see is a stated negative goal, the number one negative goal of the Georgia Guidestones itself. It may be that, Ted Turner advocates that it should be 300 million global population. He may have possibly been, I don't know this for a fact, but he fits the description of R.C. Christian, who was the guy that gave the $20 million to fund this project way back decades ago. And it may have been him, because there's not too many people with $20 million that could just hand to a project that fit his description that also say the population should be 300 million globally. But my point on this is these are very, very negative guidelines, with the exception of number 7. Number 7, I call the lucky Kabbalist number. Let's celebrate a little bit of superstition here, like along with the Illuminati and Kabbalah and all that type of stuff. Number 7, that's a real Kabbalist number, right? Hey, a lucky number. It has little other annotations, the occult. But it's interesting that they put number 7, so we can use the same type of methods in our favor. Avoid petty laws and useless officials, which is pretty much the whole damn freaking stuff that's coming out of Washington, D.C. Well, not so much them, but out of the United Nations. The Bank of International Settlements, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, stuff in Brussels from the European Union, blah, And anyway, a lot of times these people have such an ego to the max that it's like rule, passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. How do you define passion, tempered reason, tradition? Just at the whim of somebody who's in charge? That's another freaking myopic, negative freaking type of thing. It's like going back to worse than kings, actually. Because actually even the kings and the queens that ruled in the past before the United States broke away from that type of stuff, they were more or less ruled by Christianity, which was coming from the Pope or coming from someplace else. Maybe it wasn't a Pope directly if it was a Protestant Reformation. But they at least had guidelines to go by that were most, even if you're not religious, you would understand. I even want to say this for any Jewish people listen to this. If you even look at, even if you say, I'm not even, I'll tell you the truth, I'm not going to blatantly say that Jesus Christ is Savior. I'm not even going to say that because I don't really know that for a fact. But I do know that when I look at the red words in the King James Version of the Bible, those words make sense. So, I mean, in other words, that was guiding the kings and the queens in the past. Now, under this new system, you're not even going to have that. What, you're going to have some cocaine-addicted pedophile decide what passion and faith and tradition is? Is that what's going to be the deal? That's negativity to the max. That's why these guys are going to be whacked, because it's a positive thing to whack the freaking parasites. The parasites are on the top. That's exactly what's going on. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Who's to decide that? Isn't that negative? Shouldn't we, the people, decide that? If one person wants to mate with the other person, that, we'll be, we're going to have our children or whatever it is, and our offspring. It's not like going to be decided by a myopic, negative individual. No, we don't need this. Unite humanity with a living new language? We almost have that as it is, because practically English is practically a second language in most of the world. Not the easiest language in the world to, not that I would not want to force any. You see, in other words, this is another thing. English happens to be almost the second language of the world because, I don't know, I guess the British Empire was one of the deals that spread it around, and also the American Empire. But it's not like rigorously enforced. It's a matter of Do you want to go where the money is? Yeah, let's go where the money is. So you want to learn, you want to get English, you want to learn English to know where the business is. At least that's how it's been in the past. Maybe it's not going to always be that way in the future. Maybe it'll be Mandarin or something. I don't know. That's what Jim Rogers thinks. But the thing is, this is another negative thing because they're telling you it has to be that way. These are axioms. Who the hell are they to put down these axioms? They're negative. It's like forced unite humanity with a living new language. Forced? That's exactly what it implies. Because it's written in stone. And somebody paid a lot of money to have it written in stone. When something's forced like that, that means they're negative. They're going to freaking trample on somebody that disagrees with it. Because this is how we want it. Now, you compare this to the original 10 Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights. It protects the individual. It protects freedom of expressions, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, the right to be secure in your household, in your belongings, in your person. You know, the right to, and actually, at number 10, I loved that one. It's like any rights that are not enumerated in the Bill of Rights doesn't mean that you don't have those rights. It's like it covers the whole damn thing. Plus, it has the rights of the states. You know, balance personal rights with social duties. They're implying that you're going to have personal rights, but you have to have social duties. No, you don't have to have social duties. You could have no social duties. You know, you can refer back to number 7. Avoid petty laws, useless officials. Avoid petty laws. The petty laws are 1 through 6 and 8, 9, and 10. That's the petty laws. So actually this whole thing, the guys that wrote this, they got a fatal flaw within their own rule book. Because they, the useless officials, are going to be the ones, they're going to be trying to enforce this. And number 7 says, useless officials, avoid them. Useless officials are going to say, maintain humanity under 500 million. Guide reproduction wisely. Unite humanity with a new living language. You know, useless officials are going to be telling you what's fair laws and what are just courts. Useless officials. So it's like they actually planted the seeds of their own destruction in their rule book. It's amazing. It's amazing. Are the elite that bright? No. But you know what the problem is? The problem is the people are dumber than the elite. Which says a lot. Well, you know, the problem is the people are lethargic, so what they do is they keep you like boiling in a pot real slow till you actually, you know, until it's a situation where it's too late. But be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. I think all useless officials should be fed to grizzly bears, especially polar bears. By the way, you know, you see this all the time. I'm going to ad-lib on this a second. You see this all the time about the melting glaciers, and, you know, we got global warming, and don't drive your SUV or something like that. Meantime, they're trying to pump as much gas and shale oil, you know, get that fracking going all they can for all it's worth. But, you know, they'll tell you the polar bear is, like, starving because the ice glaciers are melting. That's not true. Do you know, since 1970, there was 5,000 polar bears. Now there's 25,000 as a recent count. They multiplied by 5 times. And actually, they could multiply another 5 times if we take the cancer of the earth, which is number 10, which is the useless petty officials, and feed them to the polar bears. So I think that would be a very positive, huggy-feely, nice thought. You know, peace and harmony. Get rid of the cancers on the earth, which is avoid petty laws and useless officials. I love number 7. 7 is a lucky number. It is. You know, it's even Kabbalist. I mean, doesn't that agree with the New World Order and all those occultists and stuff? 7. It's like, you know, it's almost like interesting that they put that as number 7 because it's a thing that tells you the rest of these rules are bullshit. That's what it tells you. It tells you 1 through 6 is garbage, and 8, 9, and 10 is garbage, and all the people that try to enforce it are garbage because we got number 7. So, there's one thing out there, you know what we got to do, is you can keep these things on there and just draw a line through all the other ones. Otherwise, those stones ought to be chopped up and made into something else. But I would actually be for it. I think the easiest thing to do is to take an air chisel and just go right across here and go. You know, all you need is get out there with a freaking. I mean, it doesn't have to be nothing fancy. Or you can use a 50 cal. Just blast it. You know, like that. Or armor-piercing 30-06s. You know, knock those out. And draw a circle around this and underline it. Put a couple asterisks around it. It says, avoid petty laws and useless officials. And then stick a thing on the top with like a big neon sign. You know, in granite. Except lit up. And avoid petty laws and useless officials. And that'll be the new Georgia Guidestones revised. I want this to be a positive thing for the United States of America, not a negative thing. A negative thing is all these other dumb rules. But at least they got one in there. It's almost like they planted the seeds of their own destruction. Actually, that's probably what's going to happen anyway, because there's going to be so much infighting, you know, because you can't. The thing is, you know, we all know that a lot of the elite are involved in a lot of drugs. They're involved in pedophilia. They're involved in depraved behavior in other ways, you know, almost like, you know, Islamic people do on the very top, which are the elite, too. You know, not the average Islamic, but, you know, the ones on the top, they're like that all over the place, right? Bunch of damn hypocrites. The thing is, when people have to resort to that, they don't have the discipline to rule anything. And people around them that are around them immediately, they resent them. Which leaves them open to insurrection from people just to right around them because they say, I want to be in that spot. I don't want to work for you. I want to run the deal. So that's what happens. So, but in the meantime, we got a problem because these assholes are winning. And the only reason you're winning is not because we're not Well, it's like this. You know, if people want to just vote all the freaking yo-yos out of office, they could do that in a second. But they don't even do that. They just sit back on their ass and they say, nah. Or they just get involved in giddy rumors. But we actually could fix the situation overnight. Even if worst came to worst and said a total economy collapsed on paper, you know what? The economy is what you do by your skills, your hands, and your know-how. You can make things work even if it's not recorded on a spreadsheet someplace or a balance sheet or an income statement. There could always be economic activity going on. You know, worst comes to worst. And actually, the main economic activity you need to be is producing food. Now, one of these things I also say would to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual net balance with nature is because they figured there's going to be a major food crisis. But I think there's a major way out of that. And I put that out on the videos, which was Wake Up the Primeval Code. And it's, from GMO, genetically modified organism food, to better than organic. And there's a ways to do that. It wasn't discovered by me. It wasn't discovered by people that were small-time people. It was discovered by some of the biggest scientists in pharma, believe it or not. But pharma buries this information because they didn't want them to discover that. It's actually a fact. We can produce better than organic food, cheaper and more abundant, and in less growing times, a fraction of the growing time, than we could this genetically modified crap without using pesticides or herbicides. It's a fact. Because it's an electronic method to wake up the strongest DNA expression in seeds and fish eggs, and it means that the population could be much higher than it is right now. You know, if there wasn't the discovery of crude oil, you know, the population would never be anywhere near 8 billion today. Do you know that? The reason is crude oil has enabled vast commercial or productive agriculture where people did not have to physically maintain the land. They got tractors to do the stuff. You got ways you can fly over the freaking thing and spray or whatever. You can do all kinds of stuff with machinery that runs on the energy from crude oil. You don't need horses and people. You know, you need a lot less people, in other words. You need, a fraction of the people to run the machines to produce the food. I'm saying there's a lot more discoveries out there. I mean, for crying out loud, we could be on other planets. You think the sun It is the only planet, it's the only star in the solar system that does not have, that there aren't other planets around, other suns that are like Earth-like that we can't inhabit. We can go anywhere. There's no limit to this, what humanity can be. There's no limit. No limit. But there is a limit when you have myopic, negative-minded people, like the ones that erected these Georgia Guidestones, that are putting the rules down and putting the barriers up to what the limits will be. And they decide all the limits. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Avoid them, destroy them, actually, be better. And actually, I would urge that the CIA get involved in this because, I know a lot of people on the YouTube will say, oh, the CIA. You know what? There's a lot of CIA that's freaking 110% pro-USA, Bill of Rights. It's in the government itself. It's a mixed bag. That's a fact. That's a fact. If you got the public that, you see, I'm going to tell you this at the end here, because people like Alex Jones, Jesse Ventura, they're working for the freaking bad guys. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think so, okay? I'm not being negative. They're being negative, because actually if you look at any one of their diatribes, they're constantly telling you what's wrong, but they don't give you positive solutions. They're constantly telling you what's wrong with the government. They're constantly telling you what's wrong with the police. They're constantly telling you what's wrong with the CIA. The thing is, within the police and within the CIA and even within the NSA, you got honorable people. We need to get behind those honorable people and give them support so they could do their job for us. They could do their job for us. That's important, because when you trash the whole police force, you trash the whole NSA, you trash the whole CIA like Alex Jones always does, guess what happens? Then you got an attitude that's negative. It's us against them. That's not how it works. It's us against the evil portions of those agencies. It's us for the good portions of those agencies, the ones that are for the people of the United States of America. The people that erected these Georgia Guidestones are not for the people of the United States of America. They are there to put their myopic, narrow-minded, negative rules down upon us. But again, I have to repeat that and leave you with this thought. They screwed up because they got number 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. I like how they screwed that up.